unoriginal. Today we're reviewing the first album of... Oh, hit the light. Where'd they go? Come on, get the light back on. There we go. Today we're reviewing the first album I've reviewed of 2022, The Weeknd's Dawn FM. The Weeknd. The first album I'm reviewing of 2022 was The Weeknd. And it's not even a weekend. The Weeknd has got to have one of the most successful careers of any musician of our generation because he's kind of done it all. You can go back to House of Balloons in his early mixtapes and see that he's had an undeniably massive influence on R&B over the past next decade. It's kind of crazy listening to early The Weeknd and seeing how much influence it's had in future R&B, because this is like The Weeknd bringing together this kind of, this beautiful R&B where it's real sexy and high-pitched singing, but it kind of has this like darkness to it. It's kind of like a little bit moody and atmospheric and kind of experimental. Like that alternative R&B, that is such a massive influence over the past decade of music. I can think of like Drake, for example. So check that. The Weeknd's got the critically acclaimed influence under his belt. And then he's also got the extremely commercially successful clout of releasing massive radio hits and poppy, like, I can't feel my fist when I'm with you. Like, I find that song so freaking annoying, but undeniably, that's a huge radio hit. And then we've got 2 years ago, The Weeknd releases After Hours, which seems to be the best of both worlds, where it brings together production with Oneohtrix Point Never, which is gonna please the music nerds, which is beautiful, incredible production. And then that album also had a lot of just pure ear candy radio hits that's also gonna get a lot of streams. So it's just in terms of every artist wants the best of both worlds of being critically acclaimed and influential and also very successful commercially, because who doesn't freaking like money? And The Weeknd has done it, and then out of freaking nowhere we get the word he's dropping Dawn FM, his newest album I'm reviewing today, the first album I'm reviewing of 2022. And what the heck is this? It's got Jim Carrey, it's got Quincy Jones, it's got Tyler the Creator, it's got Lil Wayne, it's got all these ingredients coming together to be obviously one of the most discussed albums of the year. It's the freaking Weeknd coming out of nowhere with a new album. Let's see what's going on. Let's start taking a look at the album cover, shall we? Funk Revolution now. This album cover is undeniably pretty stupid. But I kind of like it because it's just so stupid that it's kind of funny. Like, you got The Weeknd, like I said, one of the most hyped up artists of our generation, coming with an album out of nowhere, and this is the album cover he uses. It looks like someone used one of those apps that just makes your face look older. Like, that's literally all it is. It's just kind of ugly to look at. It's stupid. Coming together with the album titled Dawn FM, it's like, what is going on here? This is a pop star who's all, singing about fucking all the time, and then we get this album cover. Clearly, it's kind of foreshadowing. We're gonna have some lyrical themes here about aging. Oh no, The Weeknd has turned 31 years old. He's getting old. Sure haven't heard this lyrical theme, but to be clear, I do give The Weeknd a little bit of leeway understanding why he might be concerned about getting old, even though 31 is still ridiculously young. The truth is, as a pop star, where all your songs kind of have a little bit of a sex appeal, I can see why you getting older might be a little concerning, and you might want to put that in the forefront of the album, both visually with the album cover, and then lyrically, of course, we're gonna get some lyrical themes throughout this album about existentialism, we're all gonna die and stuff as well. There's a lot of kind of themes coming together in this album. We've got this Dawn FM, which is like clearly like a radio station kind of flipping through all these songs. Like, this album is supposed to be like some sort of Dawn FM radio station. And this concept of dawn, it seems to have some sort of spiritual connotations, like the dawn of spirit. We're all like, I don't know, it's like we've got spirituality, we've got existentialism and aging, and we've got themes of this is supposed to be a retro 80s radio station, nostalgia, and then we've got lots of songs about having sex, and it seems like all those kind of themes kind of try to weave together throughout this album. I'm not super impressed with the radio theme, mostly because that theme was literally just done on Oneohtrix Point Never's most recent album. Like, that album's theme was literally to be a radio, like, flipping through a bunch of stations, and then The Weeknd does that on this very album as well, with Oneohtrix Point Never as an executive producer. It's like, I bet Oneohtrix Point Never is like, this is kind of weird, like, I have this very specific theme of being like a radio that's being flipped through, and I'm kind of doing that exact theme 2 albums in a row. I'm gonna give Oneohtrix the benefit of the doubt that he probably said, hey, Just an FYI, I just did this, and I'm gonna assume he's not just straight up recycling the same idea, and it's probably the Weeknd that wanted to do it. And the thing is, the radio concept, flipping through the radio, it does add a little bit of cohesiveness to this album, and I really do like Jim Carrey's vocal performance. Listening to Dawn FM, what a spiritual, we're all gonna die, whatever, you know, just Jim Carrey nonsense. He does a great job there. I think he does a good job as the radio host, but in terms of what artistically the radio concept adds to the album, not that much. I do feel, like I said, it has all these ideas that it's trying to bring together. I don't feel like this album really excels at communicating any sort of theme. Like, I feel like it kind of just drops some sort of like pseudo deep themes here and there, but then like most of this album is all about just kind of generic 80s synth pop about wanting to have sex and like, let's have sex, we're all gonna die, so let's have sex, I wanna have sex. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it's kind of gross. Like, I know this is kind of the deal with pop music and with like 80s synth pop especially is very sexual, but like I'm kind of like, does anyone else kind of just get grossed out? Like, I don't want to hear just The Weeknd being super horny for like a full album and then kind of slipping in some themes about how he's gonna die. It's like that just kind of sucks. I don't enjoy listening to that. Does anyone else actually like listening to The Weeknd just be horny for an hour? I know that sells. That's what sells. But that's just not artistically interesting whatsoever. And musically, yeah, like I said, this album's really gonna be indulging in the retro synth pop kind of theme that's been going on for like over a decade now. I can think all the way back to Daft Punk's Random Access Memories, where it's like, oh my god, we're having this kind of like retro 80s nostalgia moment, bringing synth pop back into our music. And now it seems like every year there are like 5 freaking albums that do this retro synth pop theme as if it's some new crazy twist. Oh my god, this artist is freaking bringing in this 80s synth pop theme as if it hasn't been done like 100 times the past decade. And then we have The Weeknd doing it in Dawn FM, and it's just like literally the like most generic, like literally brings nothing new to the table. Like the entire album is just like all about pumping nostalgia, and maybe that would have worked if there hasn't been a million albums in the past decade of all about pumping this exact same nostalgia. I do like Oneohtrix Point Never's synth tones he's using. Like, I think it's so interesting knowing that Oneohtrix Point Never really got his production career started in the genre of vaporwave, which has always been a very kind of difficult to market genre, anti-capitalist kind of intentionally trying to be obscure, and now Oneohtrix Point Never is producing an album of one of the most successful pop stars of our generation, using those same slightly vaporwavy tones within his synth pop that's kind of psychedelic and real. It's a nice vibe. I do like Oneohtrix Point Never's production. It just feels like a huge step down in terms of the ambition, like compared to After Hours. Like After Hours, you listen to those synths and it just feels like like it just fills up the entire room with these massive epic synths that just feels so exhilarating in the percussion. This one just feels like, you know, he's just kind of bing 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 beep, you know, playing some chords, which is nice. That's what synth pop is all about. It's like a chill vibe. But holy shiz, is it boring? It's just boring. That's the key word for this album, is boring. Like, I'm listening to this album freaking like, okay, when are we gonna have some catchy tunes here? Like, we're milking this, let's have some retro synth pop nostalgia, milking that, and then halfway through the album we get Jim Carrey like, okay, now let's bring in some slow songs. And it's like, what? What were you just listening to? Were we not just listening to slow songs? I thought that was the slow part. I was hoping it'd get more interesting in the second half, and then boom, it just gets slower. That's like the vibe. It's like, I was already falling asleep, and now you're telling me that was not even the slow stuff. We're getting even slower. That's kind of like, that's the thing, is like all these songs sound the exact same. Just, can we milk, after a decade of milking this retro synth pop vibe, can we milk it even more? Just increasingly aggressively bringing less and less to the table, except it's The Weeknd. And the answer is yes, they're gonna do that. I do like the Quincy Jones interview in the middle there. It's very, very honest and very, very, it feels very like, it just feels super authentic. And I think it's cool to have Quincy Jones on the album. I think it's cool to have The Jim Carrey thing, even though it doesn't really make much sense, it's not cohesive with any other of the themes here. I mean, there's some cool stuff coming through in this album. But ultimately, if you have an album where every song sounds the same and it's just doing something that's been done a million times this past decade, and there's nothing different about any of these songs besides maybe Jim Carrey is in some of them, and the only thing that's different between song to song are the melodies, and none of these songs have any memorable melodies whatsoever, then you think about that. None of the only thing that's different between the songs are the melodies, and all the melodies are not memorable at all. You ultimately create an album where every song feels the freaking same. It just feels like a drag. Like, when are we gonna get through this album? Am I really listening to this shiz? And yes, the Oneohtrix Point Never production is nice. Yes, the Weeknd has a nice voice. He's singing in a little bit of a lower register, which is kind of cool to hear, I guess. He's usually singing high, but this time he gets the melodies a little bit lower here and there. Kind of cool. We got the Quincy Jones interview. We got the Jim Carrey stuff. We've got Tyler the Creator. We've got Lil Wayne. We've got this radio theme, and you put it all together, and it's just like, what has this album actually accomplished? Nothing. It's done nothing. At least in the Weeknd's popular, really vapid albums, in like after his mixtapes, but before After Hours, at least he had like some big radio hits that were gonna like get those streams coming through. With this album, it seems like it's the worst of both worlds, where I can't see any critic who's honest with themselves saying there's anything original about this album, anything that's actually like worthwhile to extract from this album. It's just a downgrade of a bunch of stuff we've already heard before in the 80s and also in the past decade. It's not critically likable. And then in terms of like the radio stuff, which is stupid, I hate it, but that's a valid thing to consider when listening to a pop album, is like you want to listen to some songs that are gonna be like, okay, well, you know, this song I can play on repeat and dance to and stuff. There's nothing here. There's no pop hits. There's no, like, I would be surprised if any of these songs make it on the radio and get a lot of replay value. It's just a complete downgrade. It's just like this album might as well not exist. It doesn't contribute anything. It has nothing. It doesn't have any cohesive lyrical themes. It tries to get slightly deep here and there with this, spiritual Dawn FM, but it just gets ruined by freaking The Weeknd putting his fucking rapey face, like he's putting his just dick in your face. That's what it feels like. It feels like The Weeknd is putting his dick in your face. And like, how am I supposed to take these lyrical themes seriously? About how he's concerned about being existential, when he's literally just like trying to fuck you and trying to like literally songs about how am I going to convince this girl to like me. Like The Weeknd has already had scandals in the past for having some rapey lyrics, and it seems like he's continuing that here, which I guess is very authentically 80s. Good for him for getting that right, but it's not very interesting artistically. This album might as well just not exist, is what I'm trying to say. It's a shame. Actually, I don't really give a shit. I don't care. The Weeknd should just retire. That's what that's what this album says to me. It's like, this is just pitiful. Like literally the radio theme was recycled from Oneohtrix Point Never. The 80s synth pop theme has already been freaking milked for the past decade plus. The lyrical themes just don't have anything interesting to say whatsoever. Oh, more songs about wanting to fuck. Wow, great. Jim Carrey, cool. Quincy Jones, cool. Oneohtrix Point Never, cool, but the production here really doesn't bring much to the table at all. It's just a pointless album. It's a pointless album. I'm giving this a 4.5 out of 10. Just, I can't, like, I know people are the fan of The Weeknd are going to listen to us, enjoy this, but a few months from now, once people realize how just completely shallow this album is, how it brings nothing new to the table, there's going to be no reason to listen to this, because every aspect that exists in this album exists in other albums done much better, including within The Weeknd's discography. Like, this album is like, it might as well not exist because it has nothing. It brings nothing new to the table. I pray to God this is the death knell of the whole retro synth pop 80s nostalgia theme, because there's no more nostalgia to milk. There's no more nostalgia to milk. You all are out of ideas. Fuck you. F you record labels who are milking this. Please no more. The Weeknd, great voice, but not always such a good artist. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of the album in the comments, but this is why we need a punk revolution. We need a freaking punk revolution so we don't get any more of this, the record label transparently milking, commercially successful themes that are just boring at this point. Like, comment, subscribe. Please like, comment, subscribe, and also hit the notification bell. You don't even have to... it's so stupid, but clicking these little buttons really helps my channel a lot in the algorithm. Just please do it. It helps me. I really appreciate it. That's all I gotta say. Punk Revolution now. Also, my Joker Cardi P is out, so go check that out. Thanks for watching. Punk Revolution now.